Hey guys, this is Rocksteady Freddie of the New York Ska-Jazz Ensemble. I'm the band leader of this band. We started back in 1994. I'm pretty much the only original member still around, and I've been leading the band on stage and also pretty much managing the band for the most of the time that the band's been in existence. Back in the day, you know, I had been playing around New York. I've been doing all kinds of gigs. Anything I could get my hands on. I was just trying to make a living, so I would play piano gigs. I played for a lot of dance classes. I played in restaurants. I did weddings. I did everything. But there got to be a point where I came to the realization that the only way to really make an impact and to have a true career in the music business was through original music. Well, it was a really exciting time for the ska. I mean, it was really popping. And what I always tell people is I joined the Toasters in '92 and it just kept getting better and better and better. And the horn section of me, Rick Faulkner, and Brian Sledge stayed together in that band for 6.5 years. So we just kept getting tighter and tighter and tighter. And the thing that was so much fun was, like, in New York, you know, we would just play at all these venues and people were so excited and the venues were selling out. There were a lot of people, a lot of energy, you know, people really going crazy, dancing, some moshing, putting each other over their heads. You know, it was just like a crazy time. I would say, you know, that was like sort of the heyday of when ska was really popular around New York and around the States. You know, the Toasters at the time were the leading band, if not, you know, one of the leading bands. And so, you know, we would be in the prime slot going on at the right time of the night. And it was just really fun, man. It just felt very exciting. Moon Records was growing. There were, you know, more and more connections to all the other bands locally and then as well in other countries. Everything was just thriving, and at the time that the scene was really flourishing, I used to play with the Scofflaws all the time, and by '94 I started the New York Ska-Jazz Ensemble. So I was working, oh my God, you know, sometimes 5-7 nights a week with somebody. I was on tour with somebody, or I was you know, working with another band. That was with the Skatalites, the Special Beat, and Selector. And that was with the Toasters. We went through the States and Canada with them, and you know, that's in fact, you know, I befriended Roland and Tommy, all the major guys in the ska world. And that was really when Rick and I, and me in particular, we had this realization that we're playing for a lot of people every night, and there are all these very good bands, but who's slaying the audience every night? These older Jamaican guys playing instrumental music. So, I mean, that sort of set the seed for us, especially for me. I was like, I want to do this, I can do this. I don't want to do it the way they're doing it exactly. I want to kind of create our own thing. But, you know, the fact that all these fans were reacting so positively and dancing to instrumental music really was like an eye-opener. This music was very exciting. It was danceable. It was accessible. The horns were in the front. We were part of the show. And you know, that's what attracted me to it. And that's really was one of the impetuses for wanting to put the ska jazz together. Musically, you know, we had been in the Toasters, which was more, as I could consider, rock ska, very hyped, verging on poppy punk, playing with a lot of those kind of bands. Then seeing the Skatalites, who slowed down the tempo a lot and were like these traditional jazz Jamaicans. They were the original jazz Jamaican guys. Well, you know, we knew we needed to have our own expression and our own statement. So I didn't want to just follow the Skatalites. And so the concept was we would take standards and adopt them with the ska, and we would also try to add something never done before, which was this more hyped tempo, which kind of came from Jonathan and the Toasters pushing kind of vibe. And then we also wanted to add extended real jazz harmonies. Because if you listen to a lot of the Skatalites songs, as beautiful as they are, they're not really going to like C7 sharp 11. Like, we're really trying to add, we did add modern jazz harmony. So basically we took the aesthetic of a lot of these favorite bands and kind of morphed it into our own concept. The original thing was that Rick and I were together in the Toasters, and we kind of decided we'll do this together. And we had kind of come up with that we want to have our own project. And at the time, you know, Bucket, or Rob Hingley, was the owner of Moon Records, and I sort of knew that if we just did a side project as a record, at the very least, he'd put out the record. So it was like, okay, let's do this fun side thing. And, you know, we were just completely motivated by what we had seen the Skatalites do, that, you know, we said, let's try it. And we quote unquote wanted a dream band, because there really weren't that many musicians who were versed in ska and in jazz. Usually, you know, you had the reggae guys who knew the reggae stuff, and then you had the jazz guys who didn't really listen to the ska and the reggae, and they really didn't approach it. So it was very, you know, a highly particular focus, that we were looking for musicians that could do both. And so we kind of hand-selected these guys from, we had Devon James and Carrie Brown from the Skatalites. Carrie also played with the Scofflaws. We had Victor Rice from the Scofflaws, and then we had Rick and I and Jonathan McCain from the Toasters. So it was a quote-unquote dream band at the time, because all three of these bands were rocking hard in New York and kind of internationally, and so we handpicked the best guys. Everybody was pretty much a yes from the beginning, because, you know, it was like, the premise at the beginning was, this is a musician's band. The original reaction was people loved it. You know, they really reacted to our energy, and also, you know, the band was, you know, we had fielded such a high level playing that the players were so great, and the audience recognized that. We ended up getting our first show that December, and our first show was with the Skatalites at the Manhattan Center. So our very first show was for 1,500 people, which was a hell of a way to start. And what ended up giving me the bug was the audience responded so well. They seemed to love us. And at that point I was sold. I was like, this is going to be my baby. It really became my guiding force. I threw myself and all my energy into, you know, building and creating the ska jazz. The one thing about the name in general, I do remember that Bucket of the Toasters said to me, you know, you should really try to keep New York in the name, because at that time, you know, he was selling a lot of records in Europe, and if they knew it was from New York, they were going to check it out. And I was, you know, sort of knocking my head against the wall as to what to call this thing. And, you know, even in the early days, you know, we probably had rehearsals and someone couldn't make it, and then we'd get a sub. So I think I kind of came up with this idea that it'll be an ensemble, because if someone can't be there, then, you know, it is an ensemble of players. With regard to the ska jazz, yeah, that is my idea. You know, I really pretty much thought like the Skatalites were Jamaican jazz. You know, our brand was not, you know, I'm not a 60 or 70-year-old Jamaican guy. It's like I wanted to have my own statement. We wanted to have our own statement, and I felt like by, you know, having these faster tempos, by extending the harmonies, by really approaching it as a rock and roll band, not as a traditional band or a traditional jazz band. It's just a different kind of aesthetic than, you know, pure ska and pure jazz. We worked at Waterfront Studios in Jersey City. It was a beautiful room. It was Lenny Kravitz's old studio, they said, or he was an owner or something. And it was just a really nice big open room. And we did everything on 2-inch tape, and it was a lot of analog. We were really going for the, you know, in that regard, I think it was the jazz aesthetic, where we wanted the natural timbre of the horns. And we also, and it's funny because through the years as this thing has evolved, the process has been very similar. The band plays live in the studio, all 6 at once. We usually just keep running the tape until we get a cut that we like. There are some overdubs, but invariably when I listen back to the ensemble work and even the solos, it almost always strikes me that it's better when it's live, because we're taking cues from our bandmates and we're feeling the moment, and we're not doing a lot of overdubs. Very few overdubs on the Ska-Jazz records through the years. I mean, there definitely are some overdubs, but the dynamic and the aesthetic is that we're trying to catch the moment, and I think that's the beauty of where the ska and the jazz actually come together, because that is that moment where, you know, a musician is like on fire and feeling the vibe, and that's what I'm looking for when we're on stage live, and I think that's what audiences love. They see a musician really trying to reach for something, and when he or she does it, it's magical. I mean, on the first record, you know, we were definitely kind of green. You know, it was our first record. It was very exciting. You know, with regard to the production, you know, pretty much it was, you know, as it's been all along. I've pretty much been at the helm. Rick was with me at that point. We would go in, we would record the stuff, we would fix it up, and then when we mixed it, Rick and I basically mixed it with Ray D. I don't even think we actually mastered that first record, believe it or not. This was a very roots kind of approach, but the point was, you know, we definitely loved the music. We played it from our hearts, and I think that's what reached people. And so, although the production level might not be, you know, like a big, you know, record company, we were in there getting it until we were happy. On Freedom Jazz Dance, you know, Victor and Carrie were there to do some dub stuff with us, because we really hadn't been, you know, we weren't really that familiar with that. But basically, that's what it was. You know, it was a self-funded, you know, project that you know, was done because we love music. I Mean You, that's the Monk tune. I think Rick might have brought that in. He was listening to a lot of Monk and Mingus. It's a great melody. It really seems to work well with that hyped ska kind of vibe. The thing that was so cool when we first started to play these for Euro audiences, and eventually as it would go, I always say how, you know, kids would sometimes be screaming for Haitian Fight Song or I Mean You or something like that. And you know, they thought of it, I think it's just a dance song. And here it was, we were like, do they know that this is like a Mingus? You know, like, we're kind of like sneaking in these really like seminal jazz composers. So, you know, I don't think everything is going to work to the ska treatment. This one just really, just really works with the ska. Prime Suspect. There was a show back then. It was on BBC. Oh my God, I can't remember it. It might have had something to do with that. What I always liked about what we were doing and what I thought was really cool was that we were like we're paying homage to the old but moving forward. So I always felt that song reminded me of like a bluesy speakeasy kind of vibe, and it really was like that horn, you know, it had sort of like a you know, with the blues, it had a sort of dark overtone to it. It was really a fun tune to blow over, but yet, you know, we were doing it with this new ska treatment, so somehow it had this duality. I love when music sort of is timeless, or it brings you back to a moment in time, but at the same time, it's, you know, from another era. So, you know, there's something for me about somehow hitting on that duality, if you will. Bob Barker, very simple tune. Victor wrote this one. The real cool thing on this is that, you know, we asked Tommy McCook to play on it, and you know, he did, and you could hear his sound. He's got that old school, you know, Jamaican sound. He was the band leader of the Skatalites. He was a friend. He listened to Coltrane all the time. I'm so thankful that I got to hang with those guys and befriend them before they passed. In fact, Tommy was very, very sick, but I had asked him if he would, you know, play a couple of songs on the Ska-Jazz record, and because he was such good friends to me, I felt very, you know, blessed in the way that he was willing to do it. I actually drove to his house in Connecticut. I picked him up for the session. He was coughing, but, you know, he did this for me. Brought him back to the recording studio, did the session, then I first had to drive him home. So, you know, I have major respect for him to do that. It was incredible. Harlem Nocturne, this song, you know, has been somewhat of the band's signature, my signature for a while. My favorite thing about this song was that we were the first ska band to ever play in Poland after the wall came down. And when we drove into Poland and turned on the radio, Harlem Nocturne was on the radio. So that was thrilling. Same thing, you know, I think that certain melodies play themselves. I think it's very important that you have the right repertoire. This one really worked well with reggae. It worked well with my sort of sax styling, kind of the growly you know, I had listened to all kinds of players from like Gato Barbieri to who else growls a lot, but I really feel like it, you know, it kind of has that very guttural kind of like, it's not sweet sounding sax, it's very bluesy, and you know, it was a feature for me. So you know, we used to do it all the time back in the day. I don't play it as much these days, but just beautiful melody. Nelson Mandela. Well, we want to give homage to this incredible statesman. The other thing I didn't really speak about before, which I love about the ska jazz, is throughout the band's history, we've always had white and black men. I really feel like that's a statement about who we are and what we believe. Ska is supposed to be about black and white, and you know, against racism, and we believe in, you know, equality for all. Nelson Mandela was a way for us to pay homage to Nelson Mandela. And nice swing tune by Abdullah Ibrahim. Simple melody, but just you know, that part of it I almost think is sort of somewhat similar to a lot of the Skatalites songs. Just pretty melodies with a good beat underneath it. Okay, Haitian Fight Song. This has been one of our signature songs through the years. Charles Mingus is one of the, you know, incredible bass players in jazz history, incredible composer. This one really lent itself to the hyper ska kind of, I don't want to say angry, but I really do like the band. You know, I will tell the drummer, if he's never played with us, play it as fast as you can. There's a certain kind of frenetic insanity to it. I think there is a part of the music that people like to cut loose. In Italy, in Spain, in a lot of places, they really gravitate to this hyper ska. And, you know, as part of the show, it's just really fun to make people sweat. Just a great song, and we loved the song, and at the time we thought it would just be incredible to have the Hepcat vocalists sing with us, Alex and the boys. We didn't really know them. We had listened to them, and we liked what they were doing, and so we decided to you know, contact them and see if they would do it, and they agreed. And so what we did was we did the whole rhythm track here in New York, and we pretty much sent them the track without the vocals. And then I remember I was on the phone with Alex at night because I was working on figuring out the exact vocals, the actual lyrics, because some of them are somewhat difficult to decipher, and I spent a lot of time on that, working that out. And then I called him, and we got clear on what exactly they were going to sing, and they just did a phenomenal job. They sent it back to us mixed, and I was thrilled. Still don't know why it's not a big hit. They sing their asses off on that song. Don Toho, another song that has stood up over time. Rick is an incredible composer, incredible musician. He was definitely influenced because as a trombone player back in the day, he probably did a lot of Latin gigs, and so he introduced this style to us. It works particularly well when we play in, you know, Spanish-speaking countries. They seem to love that we break down to the mambo. It really works with dance, and just a really well-constructed song. Elegy, another one of Rick's classics. This one he wrote, and what's nice about it is that it afforded me the opportunity to pull the flute out and play some flute, and it became sort of like a flute feature along with, you know, either a trombone feature as well. We really have extended solos on this one. The song has evolved into almost like one of our epics, if you will. It's just an elegy is a song poem for the dead. It's supposed to be sad, but you know, we certainly stretch it out and really expand. You know, there's a dub section now, and there's a breakdown section, and I just think that it's nice to musically run the gamut, where you know you really you know, you're full tilt, and then all of a sudden you break down to just the flute and the piano, and it's just beautiful melody. Ska Nib, this was Carrie's song. It was his dedication to Lloyd Nib, the famed drummer of the Skatalites. Carrie was in the band for many years. He even managed them for a while. He's an incredible musician himself, and you know, Lloydie has been the rock of the Skatalites for all these years. He created all these rhythms that all these drummers everywhere is using. I mean, Lloyd Nib is one of the fathers of the reggae and ska drumming, and this was Carrie's homage to him. This was just, you know, on the first record, a way to just diversify a little bit, try to do a little dance hall. I mean, the melody, jazz musicians love to practice this melody. It's somewhat challenging. The chord scheme is very simple, so the improvisation is cake, and so you can really expand and open up on the blowing. You know, nice melody, tricky melody to work out. I had many cats back in the day, and one of my cats, Sunny, my favorite cat, always at 12 o'clock at night would just get spooked and start like running around the house and the apartment and just totally bugging out. You know, the cat would be sleeping all day, and then at 12 o'clock at night it would just be on and he would just go nuts. So I just kind of vibed on that energy, and you know, I wrote this song sort of as you know, play on that kind of energy. But I do think it's sort of funny because the ska and the dancing and the energy and sort of the trance it creates, you know, is conducive to this midnight crazies, you know, when everybody's going to go out and dance the ska. We did a lot of that ourselves. We knew we wanted to have the horns in it. That's my horn on the, you know, in the picture. That's Rick's horn. We also knew that we wanted like the New York skyline as the vibe, because obviously it was the New York Ska-Jazz Ensemble. We wanted to create the vibe of New York with this acoustic jazz thing. We were almost like sort of, well, the next record, Low Blow, we really harkened back to those old Blue Note covers. But I mean, the original concept was, you know, get the horns in, get the artwork. Andro Blanco, he was, you know, a singer in another band. We knew he did some art, and I got together with him, gave him the concept, and, you know, he laid it out like that. He was like a New York guy doing like magazine ads and stuff. Someone had recommended us to him. I was always very much like, we see what they do, you know, we give recommendations, they try it again. You know, that's still my concept, where I give people the concept, they come up with something for me, they bring it back to me, I see what I like, what I don't like, we kind of mold it. So that's kind of the way that one went. And that original photo that was on that record, right, we did in the studio. He came down to the studio, he took a bunch of shots, and then I actually remember that he, you know, he showed me all these different things, and he did like a sepia, which is like a blue kind of tint, and then he, you know, kind of took people's pictures, cut them, and then kind of did this sort of, it's sort of like a collage. We thought it was kind of cool, you know, you get everyone's image in there. We wanted, you know, everyone in the band to be seen, so yeah, that's the way we did it. Rick and I wrote those original liner notes together, and you know, we had guests on the record. My friend Mike Quarles, who I used to play with Stanley Jordan back in the day, played percussion. We had Ken Scharf play some trumpet on that one. And then, of course, we had Tommy McCook playing some tenor saxophone, and that was pretty much it. So it was pretty much just the band with just a couple of smattering of extra players and stuff. This style and this sort of approach to a band sort of lent itself to appealing to a lot of young musicians, because there were all these, you know, horn players in all these schools throughout the US that, you know, wanted to be in a band, but they weren't like cool rock guys. Well, this was their in, because now they could do something that was quote unquote, I don't want to say cool, but it was fresh, and you know, they got to play a lot, they got to be in the front, they weren't just guys in a horn section going bop, bop, bop every 20 measures. So I think that's why in the States it appealed right away, and I still think these days, you know, there are always like schooled musicians in every country, and these guys are going to be very much attracted to this style, because it's a way that they can use all this musical knowledge and effort that they've been putting into their instruments to play a form that's a little more commercial. So it's not pure jazz where it's very esoteric in certain instances and they're only playing for like small audiences. This affords musicians to kind of open up to a bigger audience. And quite frankly, you know, for me, it's just more fun. I want to be out there when the people are dancing and having fun. But I do think it's nice that the music sort of has this guttural thing that makes you want to move. And so I think that's what appealed to a lot of musicians and a lot of audiences. And I think that's why so many bands have sort of picked up the ska jazz banner and included it, you know, in their style, in their name, in what they play. They call themselves a ska jazz band. At the beginning, I used to say to everybody on the tour, guys, you have to absolutely, I don't care what you do the rest of the time, but on the stage you have to kick ass. If you want to come back, we have to kick ass. So, you know, whether that just means playing the music at the highest level that you're capable, listening to your bandmates, and really trying to make the show, presenting a show for the audience. That concept has not changed. That's really been my aesthetic from the beginning, because I always felt like if we gave it our all, 110%, that we would be able to come back, and it's clearly what happened. You know, it definitely mushroomed, and you know, we have an incredible fan base around the world, and I really think it's because I've been fortunate enough to have such great players who buy into this notion that when they get on the stage, the job at hand is to absolutely rock.